meeting you, Diane.
Nice meeting you as well.
Yeah, and thanks for coming out. It's a big trip.
It is a big trip.
Yeah.
My brother's with me, so our parents are in Scotland. Part of this temple, camp that I was directing ended today, so that's like a big. This is my home too.
I'm glad you're here to honor.
Hey, Scott.
How's it going?
How are you?
I know. Because I learned that they, my mom was
I
there.
have heard amazing.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
What a beautiful group to get to welcome in this Shabbat with. I'm excited to be here with Rabbi Goldberg and with all of you. And we're going to begin with words from our psalmist, Hine Matov, Umanayim, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Just how sweet it is to end our weeks here in this space with all of you. Page 10, if you want to follow along.
מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Well, I will say, first of all, you might not know this, but we in this space, for those of you online, we have almost a minion of future rabbis and newly ordained rabbis. It's like HUC AJU is representing here tonight. So it's very exciting. Welcome. Glad to have all of you here with us. And in a COVID-friendly way, I'm just going to invite you to find someone you know or someone you don't know. Make sure to find out, get their consent about how they handshake, bump, hug, or whatever. And just to wish them, introduce yourself and wish them a Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, I wish we had like stickers that were like but I hug, I don't hug, like
Throw name tags. Disposable tags.
maybe we should just do it on Friday nights. We could have like right in the front.
In bulk from like that big. It's like a big bulk company that gives all that stuff. Where it's Green Omaha, something.
They would do that. When I worked at Illinois, they had everybody doing name tags.
This is going to be a quick welcome, not your life story, just like a hello, quick welcome. And then we're going to come back together, a very friendly crowd. Thank you, Hollandbees. I see you. We're going to come back together.
שבת אחים גם יחד.
This is... I just have to say out loud what I just heard a very wise congregant say. She said, "You invite us to talk and then you ask us to stop." Very true. Very true. This is a poem. It's called Here by Robert Bernardo that I thought might be a good intention for us to begin tonight. He writes, "When the world is about to crush me with all of its weight, I find safety here. When people have been too cruel because of their ignorance, I find compassion here. When my government tries to silence me, I find my voice here. When I feel a sense of helplessness during these uncertain times, I find peace here. When I am lost and tossed about in the day-to-day maze of activity, I find direction here. When loneliness slowly creeps into my life like the evening mist, I find community here. When I feel isolated at times, I find comfort here. When friends seem nowhere to be found in the daily grind, I find good friends here. When I'm sometimes lose sight of what I can do for the community, I find purpose here. When I feel that my family is scattered hundreds of miles away, I find the nearness of family here. When the cacophony outside is too much and I need to be soothed, I find beautiful music here. When I run around and take the simple things for granted, I find meaning here. And when I am gone and have left only my name, I know that I will be remembered here." Robert Bernardo. It's beautiful. It's from a selection from the Sha'arei Zahav prayer book. It's a congregation in Northern California that has a beautiful prayer book that they created, and this is one of the readings here. The last line, Peachy's asking, so I have to comply, is, "When I am gone and have left only my name, I know that I will be remembered here." And the author, this is a very active group here tonight, Robert Bernardo. And we are going to join in a new song together. We'll welcome in Shabbat with Shir Chadash. It is on page
13. We're on page 13.
שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש. One more time. שירו לאדוני כל הארץ,
Page 20, we join together for Lecha Dodi. We welcome Shabbat as if we were at the celebration of two partners coming together. And so we'll do verses 1, 2 on page 20, and then 5 and 9 on 21.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Yishmianu Adonai echad u'shmo echad V'shem u'tiferet v'mitchila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor ha'beracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila
Top of 21.
Hitoreri Hitoreri Ki ba'orech Uri 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 Shir daveri Kod Adonai alayich nikach Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila Boi v'shalom atzeres bala Gam b'simcha u'b'tzola Toch emunei am segula Boi chala Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada 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 Pnei Shabbat Lekavila Lecha Dodi likrat kala yadada yadada Pnei Shabbat Lekavila
We continue standing on page 28.
Yada
continue standing. This is another reading. It's by Reuben Zellman called Twilight People. As the sun sinks and the colors of the day turn, we offer a blessing for the twilight. For twilight is neither day nor night, but in between. We are all twilight people. We can never be fully labeled or defined. We are many identities and loves, many genders and none. We are in between roles at the intersection of histories or between place and place. We are crisscrossed paths of memory and destination, streaks of light swirled together. We are neither day nor night. We are both, neither, and all. May the sacred in-between of this evening suspend our certainties, soften our judgments, and widen our vision. May this in-between light illuminate our way to the God who transcends all categories and definitions. May the in-between people who have come to pray be lifted up into this twilight. We cannot always define, we can always say a blessing. Blessed are you, God of all, who brings on the twilight. As we prepare for words of unity, Shema, we remember that part of being in community means creating space for all of us and all of who we are, both accepting ourselves and embracing one another. We'll join together in these holy words on page 34.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shin Kevod Malchuto Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Shin Kevod Malchuto Leolam Ba'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אמת.
When I was an HUC student and working here, Rabbi Rachel Timoner gave me it's still in my office, and I noticed it today. It's this little green card, and it has these words on it. They're from Rev Nachman of Bratslav. They say, if you believe that things can be ruined, then you must also believe that things can be fixed. Yeah. And so as we prepare to recite Mi Chamocha, This is our weekly, for those of you who pray daily, but for many of us, our weekly call to remind us that Judaism is not just a feel-good religion. It's not just one of belief, but really it's one of action, often of agitation. And that as we experience this moment when our Israelites had their first taste of freedom from servitude, it's our call to think about what are the ways in which we want to be of service in this world? How are we going to, and it's not a way we often think about how we live. Often we think about how the world serves us, but actually this is a prayer that thinks about how we can be of service to one another. And I'm looking around seeing people who gave meals to members of our community who are struggling this week, members of our community who are in interfaith partnerships, who just seek kindness and global and micro ways of impacting change. And so as we pray Mi Chamocha, I want to invite all of us to think about how we can use our time and our work to continue to repair this world for all of us. And so we'll join together, Mi Chamocha, page 40. Let's all heed the call.
ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים זה אלינו ואמרו זה אלינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד יללי
Transition to words of Hashkivenu. Whenever I recite this at night with my kids, they are able to share how scared they are, the things in the world that makes them afraid, whether it ranges from spiders to when they got their COVID vaccine today, whatever it is. But as adults, we often don't think that we're allowed to share when we are afraid or when we're scared. And to me, that's what Hashkivenu does. It sort of embraces us in this, I'd say a hug, but we can say with a shelter around us to allow ourselves to just put out there all the things that are making us feel afraid right now, and praying that this community and that whatever we believe is bigger than us will be able to hold us. And so we'll join together in these words. They're on your supplemental page. Sing with us.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Leshalom, Leshalom, V'ha'amidenu Malkeinu Lechayim, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha, Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Before we enter into our Amidah, which will be found on page 46, if you're into preparing for flipping the page, our Amidah has another name. You can see in big letters on the page, it says Tefillah. So sometimes we call it the Amidah, sometimes we call it the Tefillah, and they're synonymous. And Tefillah, Amidah means standing, like a standing prayer. So we typically stand when we do the Amidah, and Tefillah comes from a different root, which means prayer, just prayer in general. And the word for Tefillah, grammatically, it's funny. It's part of this Hebrew section, like this section of Hebrew verbs that are reflexive, that are not necessarily transitive. And so think of verbs like things that you do to yourself, like to wash yourself or to dress yourself. Thank you, Glenn. We need that. And so the funny thing about this verb tefillah, it's also a reflexive verb as well. And so when we engage in the Amidah prayer, we're doing something that's reflexive. We're engaging in prayer, but it's not prayer it doesn't have to be prayer that goes out to someone else. It doesn't have to be prayer that goes out to God. It can be prayer for ourselves if we want it to be. And so that tefillah, we can engage in that reflexive prayer together. We'll begin the Amidah found on page 46. Feel free to pray the words on the pages or the words of your hearts as we'll join together. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Haste Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah, Rav Lehoshia, Morid HaTal, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofeh Holim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechayeh, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom, yehalelucha selah. Baruch Atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
We continue in silence through page 62. You can be seated whenever you're ready.
רפים רפי והגיון ליבי לפניך יהיו לרצונים רפים רפי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי אדוני צורי אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי יהיו לרצונים רפים רפי והגיון ליבי לפניך יהיו לרצונים רפים רפי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי אדוני צורי אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי יהיו לרצונים רפים רפי והגיון ליבי לפניך יהיו לרצונים רפים רפי והגיון ליבי לפניך.
Each year is our Leo Beck Temple juniors and seniors. We have some past juniors and seniors here. As they transition to life after high school, they participate in recent years in a journeys exercise with chalk on our beautiful campus promenade or with markers and butcher paper. I invite them to chart their journeys, the moments that have shaped them into the people that they are, as well as the events that have brought them to where they stand in that moment. They draw circles and timelines and pictures to illustrate the past 18 years of their lives. And you can predict some of the events that might be on these timelines, right? B'nai mitzvah, birth of siblings, winning competitions, or traveling to a new place. Others are a little less expected, the divorce of their parents or losing a competition. And every year I am just inspired and surprised to see how these students choose to map out the events that inform who they've been as they look toward how they want to grow in this new life that they're about to create. And in this week's Parsha, our ancestors actually undergo a similar exercise. We're concluding the book of Numbers and the Israelites wandering in the wilderness with a double portion this Shabbat, Matot Masai. This conclusion launches the Israelites into a phase of reflection as they face this imminent transition from wandering in the wilderness to settling the promised land. They reflect on their journeys and in so doing consider where they have been. Ele Mas'e V'nei Yisrael. These are the journeys of the Israelites who started out from the land of Egypt, troop by troop, in the charge of Moses and Aaron. The text continues, Moses recording the starting points of their various journeys as directed by Adonai. Their journeys by starting point were as follows. They set out. And then the text proceeds to offer a step-by-step itinerary of the Israelite sojourn in the wilderness, listing 42 places that they encamped from the time that they left Egypt to their arrival in Moab. These rest stops serve as reminders not only of the geographical locations where they settled, but also of the experience that shaped them and transformed them from slaves into a people that's ready to conquer the promised land. The Torah literally documents the Israelites' 11th and 12th grade religious school journeys project. Our sages teach that the Torah records these journeys so that future generations will not forget our people's history. Like a family scrapbook, we continue to learn from their stories long, long after they're gone. Or as the medieval commentator Sforno suggests, we may look upon their accomplishments and recognize what they went through and just how far they really did come. But there's a midrash. This is a story the rabbis create to help us understand a gap in the text. It offers an alternative explanation, suggesting that these 42 places were enumerated because they all represent places where God became angry with the Israelites. So they're the 42 times the Israelites messed up, the times that they were punished, the conflicts, right? All of the hard moments. Yes, I'm sure we could do this easily for other people, but what would it be like to do that for ourselves? And so according to the Midrash, we must tell the story of their journeys not based upon all of their accomplishments and all of the shiny moments, but upon the difficult encounters when our ancestors learned and really grew the most. And I wonder what it would look like if what we would include on our own journey timeline, should we imitate this Midrash, right? Focusing on the hardest experiences that we faced or our biggest failures that perhaps we could see now with distance in a new light. Nevertheless, it's the Hasidic approach to the Israelites' journey that I find most compelling. Too often we interpret our people's trek in the wilderness as needless wanderings, just killing time until the next generation could enter the land of Israel. In this way, we interpret their journey really as a failure. After all, as the story goes, had our ancestors not made all of these mistakes, they would have arrived at their destination decades earlier. But Hasidic tradition turns this understanding on its head. You're going to have to go with me. You're going to have to leap with me on this one. All right, so the Hasidim see each of these 42 moments as intentional and suggest that Israel accomplished great work along the way, that they traveled from place to place, identifying and connecting with divine sparks, fragments of divine light that the Hasidim believe were sown into the universe during creation. And so they teach that these divine sparks had been hidden or swallowed up in the wilderness, and that the Israelites used different techniques to raise up each kind of dulled spark and to return it to its holy state. Very cool, yes. Had the Israelites not struggled through the wilderness, then this divinity would have remained dormant. And the same holds for us. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, he teaches that the 42 journeys of the Israelites are to be found in every person from the day of their birth until their death. So right now, we are amidst that journey. We are the Israelites marching through our individual and collective wilderness, trying to discover or to live out our purpose in the world. At times, especially in these times, it can feel like we are stagnant or even worse, moving in reverse. But our tradition reminds us that we are always moving towards something, that something might not be knowable yet, and it certainly, as many of us know, might not be what we expected. But what if we think about each of these moments of stagnation as our Hasidic teachers invite us, as part of the spiritual process of raising the divine sparks? Our journeys aren't always comfortable, and along the way we will experience not only stagnation, but often more pain than any of us should ever have to experience. But Parasha Masai reminds us that the goal isn't getting to the promised land as quickly as possible. Each of the 42 stopovers, each of the 42 setbacks represent an essential component of the Israelites' journey. Next week, we will observe Tisha B'Av. This is when we commemorate the destruction of our ancient temple, and it really kickstarts a season of reflection leading up, yes, to the High Holy Days. And it's our azimuth check to see what adjustments must be made to get to the next stop on our 42. So perhaps it's time that we grab our chalk or our markers or photos and catalog our journeys to see precisely where we've been so that we can choose the next stop on our 42 as individuals, as a Jewish community, and certainly as a nation. then we can move forward with clarity and with purpose toward our promised land. Shabbat shalom. One of the ways that we find purpose is by being in community, is recognizing that we can't exist on our own, but that we're meant to be in relationship with one another. And we do that in our service through our Misha Berach prayer, by acknowledging that there are people who are suffering of mind, of body, of spirit. Some people in this space, maybe even it's ourselves. And when we say Misha Berach, when we call out someone's name, we recognize that we see them. And not only that we see them, but that we're here to support them. And so if there's someone that you are thinking of on this Shabbat whom you'd like to offer our prayer for healing, I invite you to either stand up or to raise your hand and to share their name with all of us. We join together as a community in words of Misha Berach, which can be found in the middle of page 253.
Who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Aleinu can be found on 282. If you're able, please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד. Ushmo echad, ushmo echad, ushmo echad.
Words to prepare us for Mourner's Kaddish. On page 291 at the top, they're written by Rabbi Richard Levy of blessed memory. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and not but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We can do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world. In each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one whose life now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. As we recite Kaddish this Shabbat, we especially remember longtime LBT congregant Joyce Leance, sister of our congregant Bobby Bilson, sister-in-law of Butch Woodruff, mother of LBT members Tom and Barbara Leance, and grandmother of their children Michael, Annie, William, and Morris, whom death has taken from us recently. And we link her name with Winifred W. Beck, Robert Burney, Don Bowers, Thelma Reva Cohen, Marjorie Cornell, Dorothy Corwin, Arnold Desser, Helen Desser, Alexandra Fischel, Mort Gantman, Robert Gee, Francis Gilbert, Barbara Goldenberg, Eva Leah Gunther, Joseph Jacobson, Lillian Ruth Kaufman, Rose Levin, Mildred Morris, Oscar Bud Moser, Edith Newman, Robert Rausch, Herbert Silverman, Marty Sklar, Carolyn Pearl Sklar, Paul Smiler, Esther Smith, Marvin Smith, David Stein, and Adam Carl Weil. If there are other names that we should add, or if I mispronounce the name of your loved one, I invite you to please share their name at this time. We also think of all those who have perished as innocent victims of violence in a world that is just filled with far too much violence. And we also think of those who have died protecting our country and our people's ancient home. We rise together as one community for Words of Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah. Be'ama divrach yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh. B'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'olam ulamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha berechu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushvechata v'nechemata, ta'amiram be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. Zichronam levracha, may their memory truly be for a blessing.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom. Shabbat
Wishing you a
shalom.
peaceful, restful Shabbat.